Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, those who are still in morning time zones.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum, greetings, and Ramadan Kareem. Thank you very much to the Defense Services Marketing Council and partners for joining us today for a very important topic that I know will shed light on how we will enable our future security. Before we turn over into the presentation, typically our DSMC working groups would start with a introduction of everyone around the table, a little bit about yourself and your company. Because of this limited time period we have, we won't do that today, but I would encourage you to stay connected during these challenging times and the new norm. We have a very unique speaker today. I want to say thank you very much to Miles Chambers and Edge. They've worked to put together a presentation that is new and dynamic, and will also allow you to learn more about how you can engage with Edge both during this time and after COVID. One of the things that I want to remind you real quick is we will hold the question and answer to the end. Miles has graciously agreed to answer questions. Feel free to send those questions to me directly on private chat, by email or WhatsApp, or raise your hand during the question and answer period. We will be recording this virtual boardroom, so please note that we will be making this boardroom available to members and partners after this event that weren't able to join us today. I'm very happy to say that we're at about 42 different organizations this morning, this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you are today. And so we want to make sure that we jump right into this presentation. I'd like to introduce Miles Chambers. Miles is the Director of Business Development for Platforms and Systems at Edge. Many of you know Edge as it was introduced at the end of last year and as it's merging into 25 separate companies under the banner of Edge. Miles Chambers is the Director of Business Development for the Platforms and Systems Cluster and Advanced Technology Group for Defense and beyond. In this capacity, he is responsible for driving business development across the cluster and its entities. Prior to this, he worked at Emirates Defense Industries Company, EDIC, an entity which was consolidated within the Edge Group. And Miles has previously overseen several of Edge's entities, namely Nimmer Automotive, leading the international expansion of the business. Many of you may remember, in fact, our tour and chance to visit Nimmer recently in Abu Dhabi. Earlier, Miles served as the Director of Business Development at the Paramount Group, a leading defense and security company based in South Africa. During his 11-year tenure there, he oversaw the organization's expansion into markets outside of Africa, while also managing several technology transfer programs. With that, I'd like to introduce the topic of enabling a secure future, and please welcome Miles to the presentation. Miles, I will turn it over to you, and we will give you the ability to run your slides directly. Stand by.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matthew.
If anything goes wrong, let me just say that it's my user error and nobody else can take responsibility for that. Okay. Miles, over to you.
Okay. Excellent. Well, once again, thank you very much, everybody, and appreciate everybody making the time available to attend today's presentation. Matthew, thank you very much to you and DSMC for arranging the presentation. And hopefully for a lot of you joining the call, this will be something new, and we'll give you a better overview of Edge and the capabilities within Edge. I think for some of you who we've been having it's a regular engagement since the launch of Edge. Maybe not all of this will be new, but the intention is really to provide you, I think, with a deeper overview of all of the organizations that are comprised within Edge. There's a diversified group now containing 25 companies. I know many of you will probably have had a lot of engagement with some of the specific entities within Edge and know them very well, but maybe aren't aware of some of the capabilities that exist in the other clusters or in the other companies. So really the focus of this presentation is to give you that overview so that you really understand the full composite set of capabilities, manufacturing, design, knowledge that resides within Edge and its companies. And this will obviously help for us to go further in terms of additional engagements, additional discussions, which might be relevant to programs that you're working on, programs that you're looking at expanding to, technology development programs, technology transfer programs, and partnership. So with that, we'll kick off into the presentation. The key when Edge was launched towards the end of last year was you will have heard a lot of repetition around being agile, disruptive, and bold. And for a lot of you in the defense sector, this is often, whilst the defense sector is usually a leading edge in terms of technology, it's often not an industry that moves particularly quickly. It often takes quite a lot of time to be reactive. Design processes, new developments are often very lengthy undertakings. And really our focus is to try and find ways and means in which we are able to be to innovate quickly, bring new solutions to the table. And that's not in isolation. That's very much in working with a lot of partners around the world and being able to do that and bringing those technologies not only to our primary end users here in the UAE, but being able to leverage that into the region and support a lot of your organizations in ongoing activities within the region. When there's an industrial base of competence in one country in a region, it often makes a lot of sense to leverage off that for broader expansion into the neighboring markets. So when we look at that, of course, within Edge, we have a number of products and services across the group. There are a number of innovations and areas in which we are focusing research and development, from autonomous ground vehicles and autonomous aircraft through to looking at new electronic warfare capability, radar development. So there are, in addition to obviously active programs and procurement programs that we are working on, there are also a lot of in-house development programs, new innovation that we're looking at. And it's also in those areas where certainly we're looking at key partnerships on. So when we look at the organization today, around about 25 plus companies, comprised into these 5 clusters, which we'll go through during the course of this presentation. And that represents in the order of around 12,000 employees. So although Edge is new and the sector, the defense sector, particularly the government sector in the UAE, has been changing a lot over the course of the last several years. Many of the organizations comprised within Edge are certainly not new. Some of these organizations have been in existence for 20, 25 plus years. So really this consolidation under Edge was to give a common vision, ensure that there are synergies, and just as much as we are looking at the collaboration and the partnerships with many of your organizations, equally important is the cooperation and collaboration between the companies, and ensuring that we leverage off areas of expertise in one organization to support our other entities, ensure that we are not duplicating capability, that we're not duplicating technologies, and very importantly, that where we have invested in infrastructure, we're able to maximize the usage of that across the entities and in a number of programs. So I think just keeping that in mind during the course of the presentation, that when we look at a specific company and we say, well, NIMA, for example, is involved in military vehicles, if your organization is looking at a partnership with Edge, you might naturally say, well, we're not involved in vehicles, that's not the right company for us to engage with. But keeping a broader mind in the sense of what the manufacturing capability, the competencies behind these organizations are, that maybe there's a diverse set of organizations that you would want to engage with in order to support a program, be it from production of circuit boards, wiring harnesses, fabrication, machined parts. So there might be all of these building blocks spread across the entities comprised within EDGE that might give you an industrial base that's already existing within the UAE today. So we'll go through the entities as we move through the presentation, but we've comprised the organization into 5 clusters: platforms and systems, which, as the name implies, really focused on all the entities within the EDGE group that are involved in the manufacturing of a platform, such as vehicles, Abu Dhabi shipbuilding, manufacturing of naval vessels, Adassi and UAVs, and the support of those. In addition, we look at Earth, who are doing a number of different programs in system integration work, be that the integration of remote weapon stations, tactical communication systems, through to their electro-optical center of excellence, which can do full depot level maintenance and repair on EO and IO payloads. Missiles and weapons, of course, comprising all the organizations that are involved in small, medium, and large caliber ammunition manufacturing, through to precision guided munitions. Cyber defense, we work with a number of trusted partners in delivering government and strategic cyber defense solutions. Electronic warfare and intelligence is involved in a number of training programs and intelligence, personnel recruitment, as well as looking at the EW sector in radar development, RF signals, software radio waveform development. So all the competencies, the investment, the R&D relating to these sectors are housed under EW and intelligence. And then finally, mission support, very importantly, provides a huge amount of support in various sectors to the end user, to a number of end users, but also internally. Of course, many of you know AMROC and GAL providing a lot of MRO capability on fixed wing and rotary wing aircraft, but other organizations such as ERS and Jahaziya in the civil defense sector, providing firefighter training, personnel provision, all activities relating to civil defense. Knowledge Point, which is providing a lot of doctrine development, a lot of specialized training programs and courses. So all the organizations that are focused in delivering a support service and function either to the end user or internally are housed within mission support. So really, I would like to just spend, let's say, the next 20 minutes. We'll run through very briefly a high-level overview of each of these entities, and within that, hopefully, that starts to give a much broader overview. I know many of you have sat through and have seen the high-level EDGE presentations and understand the divisions of these clusters, but maybe not necessarily, let's say, the next layer deep, which is understanding a little bit about each of the organizations within these clusters. So Adassi is now more than 20 years in existence. Started off with a lot of international cooperation on UAV programs, working with a lot of international partners. Many of you who are on the call today are key strategic partners of Adassi, but as well as through this and over a period of time really developed a lot of in-house capability of their own in terms of design. And I think many of you would have seen this during probably the last physical exhibition that some of you would have been able to attend before everything started closing down, which was UMEX earlier this year, where Adassi launched the new VTOL UAV platform, the Garmusha. So they have the full ability to do from design through to industrialization of UAV programs and continue to support a lot of those programs that have been delivered not only to the customer here, but as well as providing these support and maintenance capabilities to a lot of users within the region. Abu Dhabi shipbuilding. So within the group today, I would say the large majority of the organizations in EDGE are 100% owned by EDGE. There are a few which are joint ventures or public joint stock companies like Abu Dhabi Shipbuilding. Abu Dhabi Shipbuilding is listed on the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange, with EDGE being the majority shareholder. And Abu Dhabi Shipbuilding has been providing naval support and naval solutions to the UAE Navy and CISPA for a number of years. They have produced various vessel designs for the UAE Navy and CISPA, as well as providing a lot of commercial and civil maintenance and repair work for oil and gas sector within the region. So today they have the full dry dock facilities. They have exceptional experience in doing system integration, where on these large naval programs, not only have they done the physical vessel build, but have been primarily responsible for doing all the system integration that's been selected by the end user. Very successfully done a number of projects within the region. So a real success story within the context of the UAE defense sector. Al Jasur, which is a joint venture company focusing purely on the 8x8 military vehicle market, delivering a number of the rub-down 8x8s to the end user here, as well as the ongoing support of that, and very much in support of a lot of initiatives within the region. Al Taif is a support service company housed under platforms and systems, really because it makes sense to keep all the MRO-related activity for vehicles and vehicle platforms housed together with the actual platform providers. So Al Taif has been providing all the maintenance, repair and overhaul services to GMC here in the UAE, the General Maintenance Corps, for a number of years. They continue to provide the service, all the manpower, doing all of the forecasting in terms of life cycle support and any modifications, upgrades, midlife upgrades, and that may be performed. So they work very much hand in hand with a lot of the OEMs of the original equipment. So, of course, OEMs still hold the IP and the knowledge and the data pack. So usually we will have a training program where we would upskill Al Taif's personnel to then provide that MRO service and capability for wheeled or tracked vehicle platforms that are delivered to the end user. Earth, I briefly touched on it earlier, but Earth is really focused in system integration activities. So a lot of programs where the end user is receiving diverse amounts of equipment from different organizations, be it edge, be it outside companies, and very often they are looking to a in-country system integration partner. So Earth is providing that system integration capability by integrating remote weapon stations, communications equipment, and doing some custom programs for the end user. In addition, they've developed quite a lot of competence in unmanned ground vehicles, unmanning of existing military vehicles that are in use with the UAE Armed Forces, and now taking that capability into and evolving this into new next generations of unmanned ground vehicles. I think you will have seen there's been quite a growth in this, and we anticipate a growth in more and more unmanned ground vehicles like we saw 15 years ago, a real drive in unmanned aerial vehicles. So now, as technology advances in autonomous drive, terrain mapping, obstacle avoidance, so there's an increasing demand and requirement for multi-role unmanned ground vehicle platforms. Nimmer Automotive, many of you know. I think, as you mentioned, Matthew, a lot of many of you here would have been to Nimmer's facilities, which is really today a state-of-the-art military vehicle manufacturing facility with 2,500 vehicles in service. The ability to do everything from design through to manufacturing. But in addition to that, being able to provide a lot of support activities to other organizations. So today, Nimmer, whilst obviously is focused on producing its own vehicles, also has the ability to provide these manufacturing services and capabilities to other organizations, even other vehicle OEMs, such as doing EMC testing when required for once you have a platform with a lot of systems integrated on it, and the possibility to do blast and ballistic qualification and testing here in the UAE. So traditionally, every time we needed to qualify any military vehicle platform to international standards such as NATO, STANAG or such, these platforms had to be sent abroad. And now we've looked at bringing all of that testing capability in-house. So ballistic testing, you'll see later in the presentation, we're doing close collaboration with one of our other entities, Lahab, and coming on stream later in the course of this year, full blast testing capability that will be done with the support of NIMA. But again, this is a service that is available and can be made available to other organizations. So in the missiles and weapons cluster, we have Al Hassan, which is doing a lot of custom protection for various projects, ballistically protected shelters, ballistically protected buildings, unique armaments that are required. All of these areas, where the end user here will have a custom requirement to add protection, enhancement, or provide any kind of ballistic protection, be that steel or be that composite. We look to Al Hassan to provide that service. Al Tariq, many of you would have known previous names and iterations of this organization. So started off as Towers and Dynamics, which is a joint venture with Denel Dynamics in South Africa. This was renamed to Barrage Dynamics when it was incorporated under EDIC a few years ago. And now under EDGE, we have rebranded the organization as Al Tariq, which is representative of the name of the product as a precision-guided kit for Mark 81 and Mark 82 bombs. And this is a product that we've had huge success with. Number of these systems have been provided, a lot of international demand, and very competitively internationally positioned. So I think that's quite an important point, is that as we've seen a lot of technologies over the years move into the UAE, really we are now seeing today technologies here, housed here, IP having been developed in the UAE that is now globally competitive. It's not just a matter of, well, this was designed and developed only for a market here, but these technologies and capabilities now really start to have global appeal and start to be globally competitive with all the other major OEMs in the marketplace today. APT, Advanced Pyrotechnics, they are involved in the production of non-lethal ammunition, typically smoke grenades, tear gas and such, and they're doing all of the manufacturing and production here within the UAE. Caracal, I think many of you are quite familiar with Caracal, over 15 years providing various personnel weapons from pistols through to rifles, through to sniper rifles, very successfully established a presence in the United States, supplying a lot of their solutions into the US civilian market. And they really have been a success story in showing how the UAE can indigenously grow capability, develop its own IP, produce products that are globally competitive, and be successful in selling these into the international arena. Halcon, which is a relatively new organization within the UAE, has rapidly invested in the development of a range of precision-guided munitions, from air-to-air to air-to-surface precision-guided munitions. And they really work hand in hand with Al Tariq in complementing the range of capabilities between the two organizations. And again, this is one of those companies, as I mentioned, where on the face of it, you would say, well, we're not in precision-guided munitions, so there isn't an opportunity for engagement. But because of this, they have a huge amount of investment in robotic welding facilities, wiring harness manufacturing, printed circuit board manufacturing. They could also be seen as a manufacturer of components into another larger program. Lahab focuses on small to large caliber ammunition, as well as mortars, aircraft bombs. Previously, this was known as Barrage Munitions, which was the consolidation of previously known as Caracal Light Munitions and Burkan. So today, under the brand of Lahab, providing NATO qualified ammunition to a number of armed forces, all the small caliber ammunition being manufactured, 40 millimeter grenades, 60 millimeter mortars, as well as the filling for all the aircraft bombs, Mark 81, Mark 82. So Ramaya, I see Manuel on the line. I hope I do you justice in presenting the overview of Ramaya. So Ramaya is really an organization that is focused on the deployment of tactical shooting ranges, And these aren't your traditional shooting ranges in the sense of just a static range, but can really be dynamic and scalable to cover a whole host of operational requirements, be that from policing requirements through to tactical military type of operations. But it's not just about the establishment of those ranges or the technologies for the targets, but it's really the management of those ranges, which is a core component. So allowing the user to really focus on utilizing the ranges rather than having to worry about how do I maintain these, how do I maintain usage of these, how do I make sure that the latest technologies are being employed. And they've really worked on some innovative ways in which to bring latest technologies to the customers by looking at innovative funding structures that enable customers, end users at the end of the day, to look at a diverse range of needs over, let's say, a 10 to 15-year period, rather than just focusing on, well, this current budget cycle, I want to build 1 or 2 ranges, which maybe only addresses a very small percentage of the real training demand. So on the cyber defense side, so as I mentioned in the introduction, we work with a number of key strategic partners. Which is focused on national security, really enhanced training solutions, personnel recruitment, testing, analytical testing, assessment of personnel, as well as deploying a number of technologies and personnel to augment existing capabilities. So they really specialize in providing high-end skilled training in the national security environment. So Signal, which is a new asset within the group that was formed at the time of the formation of Edge. And really over here is where we are trying to focus all of the development and capabilities in electronic warfare, radar development, RF signals, software radio waveforms, with there's key government programs to look at developing their own software radio waveform. So and here is really an opportunity where we are definitely collaborating with a lot of international partners. Of course, today we do not have all the building blocks out there. So we really are open to looking at technologies and capabilities there and how we can collaborate and partner on, in the EW space. And then bringing it up to the final cluster, which is mission support. AMROC, I think many of you know AMROC. Today is a joint venture company with Lockheed Martin, providing a lot of MRO capability to the Air Force on a lot of fixed-wing aircraft, but as well as having a full depot-level maintenance capability on the Black Hawk. Certainly one of the most impressive facilities. And Matthew, I think it's probably something that we should look at arranging. Is I'd invite to look at having a visit to AMROC if that hasn't already been done, because there's a huge amount of capability there, and certainly very impressive in terms of the level of support that they're able to provide, and not just in maintenance, but in system integration, weapon integration, right to that D-level maintenance. EPI, so again, some of these names might not be familiar, but these are evolutions in previous organizations. So this organization was previously known as Towson Precision Industries. This is really a success story of offset. So Towson Precision Industries was born out of offset, producing a lot of commercial aircraft components, where they are a key provider of machined aviation components into the commercial airline sector. So they do a lot of machining of aluminium and titanium components. They have a state-of-the-art surface treatment facility. And whilst obviously aerospace is a big focus of the organization, they also provide the same machining capability and competence into the oil and gas sector. They do a lot of internal work within the organization for us. even down to basic principles of vehicle steering arms on the NIMA vehicles for NIMA. And again, here's an organization that might have a lot of relevance when we're looking at collaboration to say, if there's specific machining and milling of components that can be localized, EPI absolutely has a broad range of capabilities to support that activity. ETS, Edge Technical Services, really in its previous iteration was an amalgamation of a number of entities that were providing a very diverse range of support activities, typically in the electronic and IT solutions and software solutions that may have been implemented, whether it's at a Navy or whether it's at an armed forces level, whether this is for joint operations. So today under ETS, really a core focus is to focus on all the IT-related technologies and capabilities that end users would typically need, be that ACMI type of simulation environment, be this joint operations simulation. So often that is working with a diverse range of providers in specific software applications, specific tools and technologies, and they provide that support to integrate all of those capabilities. Then Horizon. Horizon is probably the only rotary wing training school within the region that provides from ab initio through to either a CPL or PPL trained pilot. And really they are become a feeder organization into the Air Force, where once in the Air Force, you would typically go and do your type conversion onto a more military platform, or you would do tactical maneuvering. So all of the instrument ratings, twin engine, rotary wing pilot training, they have the full capability not only to do the physical training, but housing of the personnel. So they provide this training capability very successfully to a number of end users within the region. Typically here we find it's primarily to defense forces or police forces in the region, and that's largely just due to the fact that in the region there's not, let's say, a wide open space for private pilot licenses. Usually this is for mainly people who are operating in either commercial or military space. The Jahazir, together with ERS on the next slide, as I mentioned in the intro, focusing on civil defense, firefighting, and that is both in terms of providing equipment and solutions by analyzing capacity, providing crisis planning, but as well as also providing personnel. So they also augment with key technical resources in specialized area of a broad range of civil defense, and that might range from doing protection from oil and gas sector through to aviation, firefighting services, through to petrochemicals and such. GAL, so very much working hand in hand in the mission support and the aircraft MRO capability. GAL provides really frontline MRO servicing to our end user on a number of aircraft platforms, both fixed and rotary wing. And they provide all of that personnel to do a variety of different mechanisms of MRO support, be that just providing of personnel, management of spare parts, right through to performance-based logistics type of aircraft management. Knowledge Point focusing on training, doctrine development, both at sort of an echelon level, battalion level, all the way right down to niche training requirements that might arise, and right across the tri-service of air, land, and sea. So that sort of rounds out the overview of each of the entities, and I think in bringing it to a conclusion, the next couple of slides are quite key and for many of the organizations that are looking at this collaboration with Edge and what that means and how we go about that. And really today within Edge, and it would be much the same for a lot of companies, as we have typically general vendors. And I use this example, and some of you may have heard this before, so I apologize, but today Nimmer Automotive uses a lot of Cummins engines in their military vehicles. Now, the likelihood is we're not going to localize the manufacturing of engines just for our requirements, because the volumes just don't dictate it. So they would always be a vendor, but they're a key, important, and strategic vendor to us. Commercial partners is usually where we see a lot of IP, where we see some transfer of IP. There's collaboration, joint development, perhaps co-investment, where we're developing a product both for our own market as well as possibly for the export market. And I'd say where we ultimately want to go, which is a natural evolution of the defense industry within the UAE, now going on 25 plus years in maturity, is how do we now integrate into the global defense and aerospace industry, where our collaborations, our partnerships are not just about receiving technology and capability into the UAE, but how do we then, through this, can integrate either back into our own supply chain. Maybe we become the prime manufacturer of a joint product for global demand or global market, where we see both your organizations marketing it as well as ours, where there's this reciprocal trade between the organizations. And from our side, we don't dictate which of these is the preference. It really obviously depends on the nature of the programs that we talk about, the nature of the projects we pursue. But obviously the intention, as this industrial capability in the country grows, so we want to be able to leverage this into the international market and the global market. And we've seen some great success over the last number of years, successful exports from the UAE, whereas for many years it was really the recipient of these technologies. So to see the industry grow to a point where we are successfully entering into international markets, I think is just testament to the maturity of the market, the level of competence, adhering to all those international international standards that ensure that we have products that meet those requirements both locally as well as abroad. So with that, I would say thank you very much, and I'll hand back control to Matthew, and look forward to any questions that anybody has. So bear with me, Matthew, I'm working it out. I think I've handed you back control, Matthew.
Miles, thank you very much for a very interesting and I think future-looking presentation. Not only where has the UAE industry come over the last 25 plus years, but now how it's matured and is forward-leaning into other markets, into doing training and accreditation locally. And most exciting, I think, for many of our organizations is how will the market develop for export? For all of the hard work and collaboration that has been done in the UAE, how will the market grow from a made in the UAE branded defense product being internationally recognized around the world? We have some questions already submitted by email and private text, but let us start off with if anyone would like to raise their hand. Before you are unmuted, if you can please take your video, put your video on, and when you are unmuted, please announce your name and the organization that you're with. And we have a bit of an extended session today, so we have a few more minutes for questions. Would anyone like to raise their hand? There's a raise your hand function on Zoom. If you could please use that, that will notify which of the many participants. We have over 40 participants still online with us. Let's start with a text question for right now. From Alex at Airbus, we have the question of what are the priorities of Edge and where Edge wants to be in the next 5 years. Miles, would you like to start there?
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Alex. And it's it's quite a broad question to answer. I think there are certainly a number of key areas of interest within the Edge organization. Areas in radar development and electronic warfare development, software, radio waveform, developing our own indigenous waveform. I would say these are, I wouldn't say these are priorities, but these are certainly projects within the context of those that we're pursuing. Additionally, there is a lot of work going on in unmanned ground vehicle development. So there's a variety of different programs where we're looking at investing in different levels of unmanned ground vehicles, from small type of tactical unmanned ground vehicles right through to larger scale, and looking at capabilities in terms of the autonomous capability, terrain mapping, obstacle avoidance. I think certainly in the autonomous ground vehicle domain is an area that we'd be very eager to look at engaging in. Of course, on the UAV sector, we continue to look at how we can expand and grow existing partnerships that we have, as well as looking at new potential capabilities in both the tactical fixed wing as well as tactical rotary wing UAV space. And I would say there's a broad range of areas. Of course, we're being part of this is also got to be driven not just from a pure R&D point of view, but where we forecast both the local market as well as the regional market going, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that these investments are going to support a broader market space where there will be real return on these investments, not just for us, but obviously in a lot of these projects where we have partners on these programs, where they need to, in addition to drive capability developments in the UAE, also drive commercial success. So I think to start exploring all the areas, and that probably will run out of time, but I'm happy to always have follow-up calls and conversations and discuss maybe particular areas that you maybe have interest on, areas that you're already working on and you want to discuss and say, well, hey, is there an area where there could be some additional collaboration with Edge? We're already working very, very closely on a number of programs, so we're happy to take that discussion further.
Alex, did that help answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Miles. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Alex. Miles, we have another, I think, very good question from Raul at ANSYS. He asks, can you tell us how Edge is positioning AMROC and GAL? How do you differentiate the capabilities, customers of AMROC and GAL? Do you have a comment for Raul and this group?
Yeah, I think a lot of people might have the same question. And these two organizations, I would say, really complement each other. Both of these organizations have been providing this MRO support, but at different levels of capability, different platforms. The platforms that are being supported is quite a diverse fleet of platforms across the board, which you need technical, certified, and trained personnel. So we're providing this level of MRO capability right from flight line through to depot level. And with as the MRO facility in Al-Ain under AMROC becomes more and more on stream, we'll see a lot of the focus, I would say, in the depot level maintenance and repair being directed to that facility under AMROC, and more of the flight line services and support being performed by GAL, who are also providing all the personnel to perform that. So, and I think we'll see that evolve, as I mentioned, as a lot of that capability within Al-Ain comes on stream this year. Excellent.
We've received a question via email. And again, I encourage you, we have about 10 more minutes that we can use for this extended virtual boardroom. And I thank Miles for his extra time on this. We have a question regarding the cybersecurity and cyber defense. As many of us move online for virtual working groups like this and others in our own companies, how is Edge working to keep these virtual online working groups open and secure?
Yeah, of course, it's this is not a unique challenge. I think this is something everyone's experiencing around the world, and I would say within the group, there's been a lot of historical involvement and engagement in cybersecurity, encryption technologies in the cyber space, and of course, we're constantly looking at ways in which we can enhance that, from a strategic installation type of point of view, where these are cybersecurity solutions we are providing to government institutions. Keeping in mind that we're not looking at providing these in the civil market space. There's lots of companies out there today that are providing, civil market space cybersecurity solutions. So, of course, on forums like this, it's public domain information. I think specific questions on cybersecurity and areas like that, I'd be happy to take further with you in a follow-up call.
Excellent. We have another question regarding Altaric, and it was very helpful for you to give us a little bit more background. Many of us who watched the Denel joint venture with Tawazun, headed up by Hamid Al-Barar, really build Tawazun Dynamics and the Altaric system into what it is today. It's a real success story. I think one of the things that you highlighted in your presentation today is that Altaric is ITAR free. And really, can you touch on how important it is that Edge is becoming very competitive globally because it is able to make a first world defense product and export it without export restrictions to allied nations?
Well, I think firstly it's important to state that, of course, the UAE and Edge, we work very closely with a number of US companies and a number of European companies, and we absolutely on these programs completely respect the ITAR regulations and the regulations of many of the other countries we work with, be it the UK, France, Germany, and others. And in a number of these programs, it's not something that's unique to Edge in the sense that sometimes this imposes restrictions, and some of those restrictions are done with absolute merit and justification in mind. That being said, of course, when you are, like with any other organization around the world, when you are investing in developing your own IP, your own technology, you really want to be the master of your own destiny. Of course, adhering to international controls and embargoes, but we want to be able to where these products ultimately get exported should be a matter for the UAE government to decide to a large extent without necessarily having to always go and have permission granted from others. But as I mentioned, that in the context of a lot of the programs we're working on, ITAR is part and parcel of our daily lives in many of these organizations. So I think we have a very good balance within the group today of working under these regulations, as well as a number of technologies and IP within the Edge stable today that is developed free of those regulations.
Well, I think that's actually one of the advantages, right? So AMROC has set up some very sophisticated ITAR compliance procedures, in fact, to be able to have whole parts of AMROC and Al Ain ITAR controlled, while the other parts are open for more international commercialization. So that actually brings me to the next question that was submitted here regarding commercialization. The question is, how would one of the participants in today's call be able to commercialize the excess capacity and or capability of the companies under the Edge banner?
Well, I mean, I think, the starting point is obviously firstly to understand exactly what the nature of the requirement is in terms of utilizing manufacturing capacity, or, if there's excess capacity, and then, going through a process to identify which of the entities in Edge Group are going to be able to deliver on that. and then looking at obviously the commercial aspects of providing that the manufacturing services and what the rates and charges would be. So again, I encourage after this, happy to have a follow-up call and discuss that in more detail.
Yeah, I believe that this question is coming from someone that is interested in work packages and how they might also utilize existing capacity within Edge to meet some of their offset obligations, while at the same time supporting the already existing infrastructure, so there's not a redundancy in building something new. I think that's where the direction was going. Maybe you can touch on the collaboration that Edge companies already have across many of the projects with offsets in Tuazun, and that strong relationship between Tuazun and Edge.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the companies I touched on was EPI, previously Towson Precision Industries, which produces a lot of parts for the commercial airline industry, where they bid on work packages, and again they bid on these work packages, but they have to target commercially competitive rates, and where this relates to the ability to go and look and say, well, could this then be counted against offset? That's something that we can discuss and say, absolutely, Edge and these companies are able to support, producing those work packages and then working with you in terms of that business case submission to Towson. Ultimately, Towson is still responsible for the decisions on offset, and that decision still rests with Towson. But I think in the past, where you would have seen many companies going and presenting cases to Towson in isolation, and then afterwards saying, well, is there a company to partner with? Who do we look for in the industry? Do we create this capability? I would see this kind of more as a collaborative process moving forward, where we would say, yeah, this is absolutely interesting to us, and we will support you in motivating this, because we're interested in receiving that work.
Miles, thank you very much. It has been an informative hour. I'd like to thank you, Edge, for hosting another fantastic working group, albeit a virtual boardroom. I would encourage everyone to please follow up with Miles and with Edge directly. As DSMC members and partners, it's more important than ever during this time to stay connected. Many of us find ourselves probably busier than ever. So please reach out to your fellow members, whether that's Edge or others that you see online or maybe not online. Reach out to them, find out how they're doing, find out how you can continue to collaborate and do business and grow your organizations within this network. Miles, again, thank you very much. And just one bit of housekeeping before we close out the hour. The next week's virtual boardroom, we're very happy to report, will be hosted and presented by the UAE Space Agency. That will take place on Tuesday, May 19th at 1400, 2 p.m. UAE time. My good friend and member of DSMC for a long time, even before he went to DC and came back to Abu Dhabi, Talal Al-Kasi. We're very, very privileged to have him presenting next week. We'd like to remind everyone to have a stay safe and stay well and stay strong during this time. And please reach out to us with any ideas, or if you simply need some support. We're here for you. I'd like to wish you a Ramadan Kareem, and also thank Miles and Edge one more time and all of our members for making this possible. Thank you very much, and stay safe, stay strong. Bye-bye.